because this is kind of...
Alaskan Airline flight had a door that just flew off of its hinges mid-flight with 170 people on board. Apparently, it had some loose door bolts. Gratefully, nobody was sitting in those two seats that are being pictured. And because they had really just taken off, everybody mostly had their seatbelts on. So nobody died midair. But of course, this could have been a tremendous tragedy. Imagine if this was flying over water. A bunch of people would have died. They grounded a bunch of their flights, made all of the Boeing MAX 9s go through inspections, and found that there were also other planes that had loose door bolts. Well, recently, there has been this push to include DEI hiring practices when it comes to pilots, when it comes to people that are servicing the planes. It doesn't really matter, obviously, whether or not you die on the plane. Don't you just not want to be accused of being racist and of being sexist? In Alaska.
Okay. So right there, I feel like she's being disingenuous. Oh. And I'll tell you why.
Don't talk about my boo now.
No, I actually agree with a lot of what Candace Owens says, but in this example, right? In this example, I think that she's stretching. It's a stretch because one, we're talking about a airplane door that was bolted on that flew off. Right. And for her to just automatically assume that it was a DEI hire that was responsible for that work in and of itself is racist to me. And it is
interesting.
Is stretching it, and it makes it look like you're not really informed, or you're not really understanding what DEI is. DEI is not saying we go get some bum off the street to come do this job and they don't have to have any qualifications. DEI is saying at a certain point, someone is qualified, but people have their preferences. So if you're in an industry where it's all white males, you may be hesitant to hire a black man, especially in business, because the people that he's going to be talking to are all white men. And if you have $1 million contract on the line, you want to increase the chances that you're going to get it. So you're going to hire people that you think are going to help you win, not necessarily because they're more qualified, but because they have a certain characteristic or trait that you think will be advantageous in the marketplace. So if you send me into a room full of white people, and those white people have prejudice or bias because I'm black and I stand out like a sore thumb, that may lose you the deal. And what DEI, some parts of it are saying, when it comes to race, is like, hey, maybe take a step back and give this person an opportunity because they are qualified, and see how it works out. Be aware of those biases. Be aware, and not just with race, but with other things. So when she's saying a door flew off, it must have been a DEI hire, what evidence does she have of that? It just seems like that's her trying to fit the narrative, right? Because that could have been a white person that did it. That could have been, that could have been there could have been any number of reasons why that door flew off. But to just go to, it's because they had a DEI program, that lets me know right there that part of the argument is disingenuous, and that they're trying to scapegoat certain things. They're trying to, oh, look, something went wrong. It must have been this DEI hire who was a bum living under a bridge, and they just went and scooped him up and had him working on airplanes. That's not what happens. So, and I would also argue that Candace Owens is a DEI hire, but we'll get into that later.
Don't talk about her like that. She put it on for the people.
Reverse DEI hire.
Yes, guy. I might have to disagree a little bit, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Maybe she was disingenuous about how she approached it. I'll give you that. I don't think she should automatically jump to, well, it was a DEI hire. Mm-hmm. But in some states, and I know this for a fact because I'm originally from Florida. In Florida, they allow a lot of people to come over on a visa. Black, white, whatever culture, whatever. Purple, blue, yellow, whatever.
Okay.
And a lot of them have no clue how to operate things at an airport. And I'm speaking specifically to Panama City Beach Airport. Well, it used to be Panama City Beach Airport, but Panama City Airport, when you go there, you're going to see nothing but probably majority of them are Jamaican. And many of them are only on there on the visa. So they're there for summertime, maybe into the fall. But a lot of them don't have certifications, qualifications. It's more of just a body that they need to work. So they're going to put you through a little 4-week, 6-week course of, the basics, and we're just going to throw you out there. And I know that because I've lived there, but I also had a family friend who worked there and was giving me a lot of the scoops about what was going on. Because they work in not only at the airport, but in the entire city, and their work is not up to par as if it was somebody that had the qualifications, that had the knowledge, the certifications to do that job.
Which jobs are you talking about?
Specifically?
Yeah, like is
airport?
Is this like low skill labor work?
Nah, like some of it is, but some of it's more operational as well. Like gassing up the planes, packing the planes, making sure they're doing inspections.
And you're saying these people don't know how to do that job?
To an extent. I think it's more of, we're going to throw you in here, you're going to learn on the job, you're going to make mistakes.
And they bypassed people who knew how to do the job to give these people the job.
Yes.
And how do you know that they bypassed the people? Like, how do you know that the qualified people were overlooked?
I have a CI.
This guy.
I'm for real. I have a family friend. I got 2 family members, actually. I have a family friend who was in management, and the goal was to hire as many people you can to have those bodies on the job to do the work. It didn't really matter who was qualified. It was more about who we can get on faster.
So I'm going to push back and say that that's not DEI. That's just somebody being cheap. That's just an airline being cheap, because DEI is not saying we're going to try to go out and get cheaper labor necessarily. DEI is saying there's there are people qualified, right? Because getting cheaper labor that could just be part of your you may not have the budget to pay somebody more, right? Like I don't consider that DEI. When I consider DEI is like you have one candidate and then there's another candidate, and you're hiring this other candidate and they're pretty much equal, but you're hiring this other one because of one of the qualifications. They're Black, they're a woman, they're disabled, whatever the case is.
All right.
But I think that that's different when compared to like when you have certain industries that are dominated by Mexican people, like agriculture, or what you're talking about in your city where it's Jamaican people at the airport, right? I don't consider that a DEI hire. I don't think they're trying to promote.
Because here's the thing that you also have to consider. Most DEI hires are going to take less money most of the time. Many of them are not going to start out with their worth. They have to prove, not only, even if they get the job, they also have to prove themselves in order to get to a certain amount of money. So is it cheap labor? Yes. But I think that comes with hiring DEIs because they're stepping in unknown territory. And it goes to my point earlier about what I said about them having to conform in order to exist and be not invisible in the organization.
But a DEI hire has to be someone that's out of the norm. If Jamaicans dominate that, then hiring someone who's qualified, they would be the DEI hire. I mean, if you took me on a construction site or a roof job, and I'm the only Black person there, and let's say I'm the only one that can speak English, and I'm the only one that has these certifications, I'm the DEI. Everybody else is, not qualified. So I would be the one that is different. So if what you're saying is the airport is dominated by essentially people who aren't from this country and who are Jamaicans,
Yeah.
Then the qualified person would be the token.
I was reading the comments. I mean, it's not dominated now. It has over the past few years, but before it wasn't like that. But I mean, to your point of it being cheap labor, I think we have to throw that in there as well. That DEI hires always settle for lower than what they're really valued.
But again,
I can get a job off of qualifications. Like you can go get a job working on a construction site because you speak English, but it doesn't mean that you're like the token. That doesn't mean anything.
If you're the only black person there, even if all the other people,
but you're going off of speaking English though. We're not talking about you being black. We're going off of speaking English. If you go to
let's say you're the only person that speaks English there.
Right.
You're the token. You don't fit in. You're different than everyone else. So you would be the DEI in that situation.
I guess to an extent.
Right. Like you're in social work, right?
Yeah.
She said, dude, you need to stop worrying about race. I'm not even.
Get him, Jared. Get him.
Race is the trap. I'm going to say some things tonight that I think will pleasantly surprise y'all. All right.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I'm not bringing up race in that way. Candace Owens was. Candace Owens was talking about it was diversity hires. But again, if we don't bring up race, how can we even address what she's talking about? This is a bigger issue. So if we can't bring up race,